Welcome to this week's version of the Vegan Stew. We're very happy you're here. And even before we started, let's say hi to Deb Thompson. So thanks for the message before we even went live. That's awesome. Let's say thank you to Organic Motherland Foods for sponsoring Virtual Veg Fest Live for the month of July. And if you'd like to win prizes, we would love for you to go to virtualvegfestlive.com, hit the contest tab, and hit the contest tab and enter our wish pond to win one of 12 prize packs from Hodo Foods, Bernie Wilds Adventure Sauce, Total Body Lab, Kathy Hester, Cinnaholic, BB Kids, Veg Key, Dojo Fresh, Bitchin' Sauce, Fabulous, Terra Seed, and Tripo Treats. That's pretty awesome. Now, we love when you communicate and join us for the show. So if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the little box, and that way you're part of the show. And YouTube, go there, subscribe, Vegan Stew, Virtual Veg Fest Live. How do I do this? Subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know when we go live, whenever we do. And you can watch the shows too. Let's get started. Our topic tonight is climate, and it's incredibly important. So let's see. We have Marla Rose from Vegan Street.
Hey.
We have Sovereign from Morella Morning.
Hello.
We've got Ellen Jaffe Jones, the veg coach extraordinaire, and our Kelly, the vegan enabler, climate healers, Canada, and our person who we had to have on the show this week because we're talking about climate. She's our expert. So all of you will be experts too. What shall we start with? I guess we'll start with like the huge tornado that was in North Carolina about like an hour or so from my house this afternoon. I didn't know until I saw the Weather Channel update, but some damage and stuff. They had to close I-95 because Rocky Mount is right off I-95. They had to close I-95 because of the trees and everything that was strewn all over the freeway. And that's, as Marla said before we went live, not really a high tornadic area. But Marla also said before we went live that you grew up having tornado drills. I did not grow up having tornado drills on Long Island. Long Island, like not even a thought of a tornado happening there. I think more tornadoes have happened there since I left than ever, like never when I was growing up. And it's interesting, because my drills were actually bomb drills because I lived up the road from Grumman. Even though Grumman is where they made stuff for the military. And we were close enough that we had to do bomb drills and like bomb drills. So go in the hallway and put your hands above your head and sit in the hallway. I'm like, it's not gonna work.
So in St. Louis, we had a three-way. We had the Russians, because they were going to nuke us, and then McDonnell Douglas, which was the precursor to what's the company now? They all run together, but they were. Monsanto. They were all together, and then tornadoes. I mean, St. Louis had in 1959 just one of the worst tornadoes. I remember I was 5 years old and woke up and just saw all this death and destruction. So, but I was in Pittsburgh for the National Senior Games last week, and we had crazy weather. I would put in some GPS directions, and it would go, "We're going to take you the route that avoids flash flood warnings." It's like, what?
Oh my God.
Between them clear cutting all the land up there for housing developments, and then just the weather has gone crazy. I wasn't even sure I should go because there were all these smoke warnings, but the good news is about the rain, it cleans all that out. So we didn't have that issue. But I was in my hotel room, and it wasn't even a tornado watch or warning or anything. But I showed a picture in our chat before this of like complete whiteout conditions outside my room. It was like a hurricane, things were going sideways, and just intense rain and thunder, and like, Mother Earth is not happy.
Right. I was thinking that's part of the whole picture is that meteorologists can't really accurately predict things anymore with giving us enough time to, like there are certain things that they can see, in the, say there's a hurricane that's gathering, whatever. But like last week when there was a tornado here, I got the warning like, 2 minutes before. It's just like there's not, I think because things are so chaotic and the weather is getting more and more unpredictable and weird, you don't know when there's going to be a deluge or whatever.
I come from when I was growing up, when we had the warnings, and when we were little, it scared the crap out of me. But we had like the little tornado. It looked like a little clip art tornado, like right at the corner of the screen on the TV. And then you would see the banner running, like Channel 7 News, like the banner would run showing that. And I think I've never like seen a tornado, but I remember we were coming home and it was really still. And as we parked in the driveway, and it was, my parents were, of course they were concerned, but there's little me, like 7, 8 years old, like screaming at everybody to get in the house. I'm just more of a panic or anything like that. I'm like Sonic telling them to get in the house. Because if you looked at our house, in front of us was just red, behind us was black. And as soon as we got into the house, there was a tornado that ran. We hit straight to the basement, and a tornado had gone through the subdivision, and a tree had landed on our neighbor's house right beside us. Luckily, she was not home, but it broke like her house straight in half. And it was scary to see these things, or know, and or you have the alarms or the sirens go off. And that was like maybe a couple of times when I was little when I would experience those. But now it's almost like, either you would look on the news and see how many places get hit just like that, and there's like no notice for a lot of these places, no warnings go off.
Right.
Temperatures are increasing. There's rain or storms, thunderstorms. It's 90, it's 100. I mean, it's just more frequent, unfortunately, because climate change is a real thing. You have stupid douche canoes in office that don't care because they think that climate change is not a real thing. And then it's like, it's just going to get worse. I mean, we're looking at record temperatures in, I believe it was the airport in Iran. It was like 160 degrees, 170 degrees at the airport. There are a lot of planes in the United States that are not flying because it's too hot. So it affects the tires, it affects takeoff, it's breaking down AC in planes. I mean, I'm baffled by those people who don't think that it's actually real. And unfortunately, it's those that hold power that is putting money over people. And right. It's extremely frustrating, because it's not like we're not advocating for a change. It's like we don't have that power to do it. As we have the power to make change, but we're not in power to be able to facilitate like as much as we want to that change. It's like you have to wait for them to die out like dinosaurs before we can actually take office to go ahead and do it. Because even those that are in office, that are the younger generation, they don't really have much say. They're fighting against those that are paid off, unfortunately.
It's not a I mean, with a representative democracy, people get people vote for those who think like them. So unfortunately, there's a lot of climate deniers in this country. And, a couple of little points. One is that, like, I've noticed on NPR lately, like on All Things Considered, when they it seems like at least half the stories these days are about weather and climate, and they will say climate change. This shouldn't be a big deal, but at least they are saying it and not acting like, I can't imagine why it's the third year in a row of extreme heat in Texas or whatever. But the other thing is that there was a guest on a couple of days ago on All Things Considered. He said, we have the technology, we have the scientists, we have the science. We even have corporations that are getting closer to meeting climate goals. But what we need is people to buy in. and to change habits. And, it's just, as we know from the pandemic, asking people to do something for one another is not necessarily going to be effective.
It's not going to be effective. And then it's something else that just kind of like, I'm like, it's the higher ups squashing. It's about greed. So the strikes that are going on with SAG-AFTRA and WGA, which I, as a content creator, I stand with them. I refuse to do any work. I stand with the writers and with SAG. So, it's really sneaky what these people are doing now to like reach out to people who are, but they are actually cutting down trees. They're cutting down trees. This was at NBC Universal. They are cutting down trees and removing all of the foliage to prevent shade from striking members. And it affects the growth of the trees. Those trees are not going to grow. They're damaged now. You're looking at the temperature that we're dealing with in California, which is already hot. So you're not only affecting you're being malicious to the writers and the actors. You're also being malicious to the environment and to climate. And they showed all of these trees that are just bare. They should not be that white in the summer. They are like whites like you would see in the winter, which is to be expected. But no branches, no leaves. They just cut it. I mean, they cut it like it's the desert. And they did it out of spite. And then someone who came on, and he's known as the Lorax because he has such a knowledge of trees, and this is what he deals with in terms of the climate. That was just saying it's malicious to just a human being. You're harming the environment as well, because this helps to filter out, what needs to be out of the air, also to provide shade and helps to cool the temperature, and what are you doing? It's all about power. And it's interesting to see, you want to pour all this money into AI, just like you were saying, there is ways to do it. There are so many means to be able to nail this. It's the fact that they don't want to go ahead and do that. You're not thinking for yourselves. You're thinking about your pockets. You're not thinking about other people. And so other people suffer. To them, it's just, well, one less person and more money for myself. But you are like, sitting there. What do you need all this money for? You're not going to die with it.
Right.
It's just, I don't get the concept of all of this. And it really means nothing when you have the heiress of Disney, who was out there, was arrested recently because she was taking part in climate protest. So she was arrested, and she's the heiress to the Disney Corporation. So, I mean, it's just like, sometimes your title doesn't matter. You're in the way of money. You're in the way of greed. So we could care who you are. You'll go down like every other person.
So Kelly, what's going on? Kelly, what's going on in Canada?
Forest fires. I was just looking at the numbers. We have like over 800 active forest fires and like over 4,000 since the beginning of 2023. So what I was going to say is, I like Marla, like what you were saying, they're using the word climate change now in the news, and people are understanding, the climate change. But like, I personally think we're already past the point of no return. And unfortunately, even if people recognize like that it's climate change, there's so much climate anxiety. I was in a meeting the other day and we were talking about climate anxiety, where people just are paralyzed. They're not doing anything because there's so much fear of the future and feeling like nothing they do makes a difference anyway, right? And I know, Marla, Justice is the same age as Ethan, right? Like, my children are like, look at their future as so bleak because of climate change.
Yeah.
Right? So it's one thing to know, it's another thing to like feel paralyzed and feel like you
absolutely.
And like, even if we are past tipping points, that doesn't mean like we're at the extreme where F state, right? We can still, get to say 30% habitat loss versus 80% habitat loss. So, but we need people to get active.
We need to stop.
Yeah. Like, okay, I now recognize climate change exists. Now I need to do something.
Right.
So that we don't have what's it called? The Venus effect, the runaway climate change.
So let's touch on what Deb has said. And Deb has mentioned that animal agriculture is a huge contributor of the powerful GHG methane, yet only fossil fuels are mentioned by all mainstream media platforms, which is true. They don't really mention about animals at all. Not to mention the carbon sequestration of trees being decimated to make room for grazing livestock. Yes, we're destroying the planet so the animals can eat, so we can eat them. And then John said, I just read a story claiming that fossil fuel execs are protecting their families from climate change by moving them to high ground in areas that are considered safer from the crisis.
They
Well,
wouldn't do that.
Well, when
That's
you
so
have money, you can do things people can't when they have money. It's very, I guess we'll call that like the Titanic effect.
weird.
Just made that up, but that's really what it is. The people who were poor ended up getting locked downstairs and drowning to death, and the people who were rich got on the boats.
You're not wrong about that. It's a good analogy, especially because New York is sinking. So
So's Florida. So's the east coast of
Yeah.
North Carolina.
yeah, skyscrapers are weighing down because New York's pretty much built on water. So New York is sinking, and rich people are just, we're gonna leave.
So what Sovereign's referring to is not New York. Sovereign's referring to is Manhattan, which is the island of
There we go.
Manhattan. So it's one of the
Yeah.
5 boroughs, and the island of Manhattan is an island, and it's a very congested place with a lot of buildings and a lot of people. And it makes sense to me. It never flooded growing up. Like that was just not heard of, that Manhattan would flood. And we know that not only is it flooding, like the Lower East Side is just underwater when they have bad storms, but we can go back to that storm that started in the South and made its way overland all the way to New York, and people in New York died from a tropical storm that kept its strength going overland. And no one expected that. And that to me was the first time. I think we brought this up when we started the show 2 years ago. When we started the show, that happened then. And they just started talking about climate then. But then they talk about climate and they jumped at infrastructure. Well, what can we do to fix this so that things don't flood?
Make it like the Netherlands. That's it.
It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way it's discussed is generally just very not helpful, because it just kind of overwhelms people and makes people just feel powerless. Like, what am I personally going to do, about it? But like, if we can, I mean, it seems to me that what needs to happen is we need to be able to show that positive change can happen. And these are the steps that we can all take to reduce our footprints,
Yeah, let us just remind everybody, in case you don't know and are listening, that the United Nations has said the number one thing you can do to reduce your carbon footprint more than giving up any form of transportation is to give up animal agriculture. So, we just don't say that enough. We don't get that message enough. And I think it's important to say that there are groups of people who say that this is God's will, thy will be done. And, not a darn thing that we can do to stop this train wreck. It's just not true.
Right.
We have to stop that. We have to stop caring so much about people being hurt by being told this very serious message, right? Our existence is at risk. So this little, reduce your meat. No, we need drastic action from everyone who's capable of doing it, right? And I'm still, so even though I'm still, yes, I'm seeing these articles about meat and relating it to climate change. It's always this, just cutting out, it's like the Meatless Monday. It's that message is still here, and it just needs to go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Today I got irritated because I saw yet another person posting this kind of smug and totally incorrect meme that eating local beef is better for the environment than eating quinoa shipped from Peru if you're living in North America. Now, the problem, I mean, there's several issues with that, but one is that they're cherry picking rather than saying, which is more, honest intellectually, local peas or soy or, whatever it is. But the fact is, in this article I read that, is part of a study done by the University of Cambridge, I have a fair amount of trust in them, is that the most quote unquote sustainable meat is still terrible for the environment. So if you're eating local beef, for example, they're still clear cutting forests. They're still overusing water. They're still producing methane, all these things. That quinoa from Peru, that is the boogeyman, is the more sustainable ecological choice. Even if you take out there are within the plant-based family, there are more eco choices that you can make, as you go down the list. But if they take this boogeyman of quinoa, it still holds up way better than beef that's local. But so that's part of my issue, is that people believe these lies and keep spreading them because they feel better. It reinforces what they want to believe. And then people don't even necessarily eat local beef, but they feel better about themselves as meat eaters. And that's a big problem.
It's a really funny thing about the meat's still going to cause you to get like cancer or diseases. So that's that's still going to happen. But for me, those poor animals that are raised grazing and having somewhat of a normal life and then are sent to a slaughterhouse to die, to me that's just absolutely horrendous. Then I live in horribleness, so I die in horribleness, but I now lived in like, oh, this is nice. And now I'm being sent somewhere absolutely horrendous to die. And most people don't realize that those farmers who are raising the grass-fed meat don't slaughter. They send the animals to slaughter. Yeah. So they're raised to like be loved. How do you, I just don't understand.
Even then, it's such a small percentage of those animals. It's like what, 0.05%, if that are raised in any kind of semblance of, humane.
Right. It's just but the whole thing is that still impacts, like you're saying, it still impacts climate change because of the way they're slaughtering. So they can be like, well, they slaughter them themselves. That's awesome. I mean, I'm just like, what? Yeah. They were raised with love and then killed by the people that love them. that makes you feel good. And that has nothing to do with climate, but that's just personality wise, your meat is so important that you want.
You're cool with that.
that right. And I mean, gosh. So I got an email today from my newsletter, which always makes me happy because I'm just happy people read my newsletter. And in my newsletter this week, I talked about cancer and I talked about health and like cancer and vegan and being vegan. And this person wrote back to say they had 3 years ago, they were diagnosed with a aggressive form of cancer. And they weren't vegan at the time, but as they were laying in their hospital bed fighting for their life, they thought about the animals and how the animals fight for their lives so that they can be eaten by people. And they went vegan from their cancer, almost dying from cancer. And it's absolutely amazing because it's a very serious topic to put into a newsletter to talk about disease and cancer and ALS and people being sick. But it touched somebody enough to write back to me. Awesome. So it's absolutely amazing. But this climate change thing, It's not a thing. It's all around us.
Mhm.
I mean, the air, when we drove back from Atlanta on Monday, I said, look at the sky. I mean, it was gray. And I mean, New York turned a different color, right? New York went dark from Canada. Thanks, Kelly. But we hadn't been impacted. Like, we didn't have any change until this past weekend, where the whole drive from, I'm in North Carolina, so driving through South Carolina and Georgia, driving up from there, it's just gray. The whole sky was gray, and not because it was going to rain. And then the heat. I mean, it's summer, so I always say summer it's supposed to be hot in the summer. That's kind of the way I get through summer. This is oppressive heat. And it's, you don't want to be outside. You just don't want to be outside. And I'd say Deb said exactly, they all go to slaughter. What hypocritical and horrible violation of those animals' trust. That's very true.
One of the things I was going to mention is that, you know, if you're listening, we should do a meme about that. Still listening. That fewer and fewer actual slaughterhouses still exist. I don't know the exact statistics, so I can't cite it, but it's a mere fraction of the amount that there used to be. So more and more of these feedlots and, you know, industrial farms have to truck their animals very, very, very long distances with in the summer, in this heat, in these metal torture chambers, you know. So that's another aspect of how foolish we are, you know. It's awful.
There's a link. There's a website called Our World in Data, and they actually have a breakdown of like post. I can't remember. I'm going to get it wrong. If you're listening, please post the link. Otherwise, but it's like basically discussing that, like your transportation of your food, like after production or whatever you want to call it, right? And it's minuscule. So yes, please support your local like produce farmers, because you know fair wage and everything, right? But like to try to say like you get a quinoa from so and so is way worse than your local meat. It's complete BS, and the World in Data has the chart that clearly talks about it. So
it's so interesting because I was looking at that exact thing today. On there. Yeah. And that's a project of Oxford University that I was talking about.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say, Helene, about, because you said thanks Canada for the smoke and everything, but that is like people, like, you know, even when we talk about like, you know, how much Canada or the US or whoever contributes like to you know, to climate change because of agriculture, it's irrelevant. We are a world, we share an atmosphere, and this is very clearly showing, like, you know, it doesn't matter where it's happening, people are going to get affected elsewhere. Like there's going to be climate refugees, and it's becoming more and more evident that you're not in your little bubble because you live in the US or you live in Canada or you live in wherever, right? It affects all of us. And the sooner we like recognize that, you know, we hopefully can start to like have empathy for other people too, right?
Yeah, we recognize that, we do something about it.
And obviously
right. And that's why we need to be empowering of people rather than shaming of them for not being vegan yet, right? Because we need to help give them tools. I mean, like if somebody's going to read judgment into your outreach, then that's, you know, not necessarily on you. But you know, it is a topic people get defensive about, but like what we need to be doing is, that's why this is a big part of why I get so irate by people nitpicking on silly little things when we have a world to save. You know, it's like, you can't even, you know, but like that, the fact that like vegans are fighting within each other, within veganism about like whether sugar is vegan, like oh, there's my cat's tail. Sorry. But it feels like such lost opportunities every time this happens. It's because we need to make a major shift, and when people are nitpicking and attacking one another and being rude to people who are asking questions, who are genuine, that's the tail, genuinely asking questions,
Well,
that's just frittering away. Yeah.
well, we
And,
talked.
the disconnect
Mhm.
is so pervasive and massive, and people just don't see the big picture. Because I knew we were doing this topic, I purposely wore this shirt tonight. There are all these races that you run for different issues, and people will pick out one species that they can relate to and want to save, and they just don't understand that it's so much bigger than one
connected.
species, one animal, one group of animals. And I find that incredibly frustrating that it feels like we have so little time and so much of a message to get out there.
Yeah, it's hard. We all need to be just the best, most avid advocates we can be. It's hard. And that's why, it frustrates me when as Vegan Street, when we put a lot of time into creating an educational meme, but people care that a new Cinnaholic opens somewhere. Like, I love Cinnaholic. I'm excited about that too. But we need to put equal time into opening eyes to, the hard stories, that need to be told. It's frustrating. As vegans, we need to prioritize better. Sorry.
Our Cinnaholic near us, which isn't like too near us, is having $2 Cinnabons today. Cinnaholic, yes. They're making a decision not to go and drive today because A, we don't need it, and B, it's far, and yes.
No, we have to say, I have nothing against Cinnaholic. That was just the name that popped in my head. But it's just like, I kind of wish as vegans, like, I feel like as a collective, we're so resourceful, we're so creative, we're so passionate. If we could just harness that in a more effective way,
So I think we just play in the mainstream as much as we can. I mean, just not to toot my own horn too much, but gold medal in the U.S. National Senior Games this weekend. So I'm on a podium with these other ladies, and it's getting a huge amount of press. 70-year-olds run this fast, and wearing my vegan headband. I mean, the tough part is I'm sponsored, so I have to wear their shirt, which is nice. But I'm still wearing that vegan headband, and hopefully it's showing up in the photos. I mean, just in the ways that you can kind of wiggle your way into the conversation, even if it looks obnoxious, even if it looks like you have an agenda. Yes, I have an agenda. I would like my children to be suffocated to death. And we have a problem with that. I don't know.
I think
I'm curious, Kelly. I saw a story this past week that the plankton is really like non-existent anymore. It's really is that true? I mean, because the Sea Shepherd has said when the plankton goes, then the planet goes, because that's our main source of oxygen. What's the truth on that? If you know, Marla.
I don't know, but
Kelly, that was to you.
No, I know, but I know that that's absolutely 100% true. If the oceans die, we die. Absolutely, biodiversity, in and out of the oceans is critical, and so many people don't even think about like the rare frogs that are like near extinction, right? Because we talk about the animals that are we either relate to, right? And there's like
and bee colony collapse and stuff like
exactly
that.
Right. And this it's all so intricate. But I was going to say, I think what I personally find frustrating in the vegan community is or the vegan movement is there's not even any like agreement into like what number to speak about when we talk. Everyone's on different pages, and like I like it's frustrating, like just like here, with some of the organizations here, then they'll be like, I don't want to say that number, even if they believe it. I don't want to say that number because I'm trying to get in with schools or with the politicians, and if you use that number, then they're not going to take you serious. So it's like, so you're using a false number and underrepresented, like like just what I mean. So like there's not even a number that we can,
right,
you know what I mean? Like there's no consistency, and so it ruins our credibility when we do try to talk about climate. Because, someone will hear something else, or will say another number. They'll be like, "That's impossible."
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Talking certain people in the movement who, whether you believe their numbers or not, like, just saying like, don't use that number, don't say that number, then that's not right, instead like of having like open dialogue about where all these numbers are coming from,
right.
Why are they different, what's causing the difference, and trying to have some conversation around that, right?
Yeah,
so you can speak more confidently. Is it 14 and a half? Is it 51? Is it 87? Is it whatever? Right? So that's personally what I find the most frustrating.
It's a good point. And if we don't tell the truth, then eventually no one will listen.
Yeah.
Right. Because everyone's looking for a way to make what you're saying not true.
Right.
They're always looking to judge and find the holes. And if there's a lot of holes in there, then where's the credibility? And when you lose the credibility, then they're just think, well, it's just not true that this is happening. And at this point, I think you need to be under a rock to not realize that there's changes going on that are not for the better. And there's something you can do about it. And when you get the chance to talk about it, you say, well, going vegan is the best thing that you can do to save this planet. It's at this point, that is what you need to do. It's not mowing your lawn or putting the sprinkler on, or not flushing your toilets, or driving an electric car. Those are great things. Keep doing them. But those are not going to have the biggest impact and in saving lives, our lives. Because, I know you don't care about the animals' lives, except if you're an extreme vegan. You don't care because we have to care about the planet, the humans, all the animals, including all the insects and the bees. No bees, no humans. Again, and John said, well, Susan said our oceans are getting too hot for many species. And then John said, plankton are the bottom of the food chain. They feed the fish. They feed the larger fish that feed, not feed the big fish. I mean, Steve and I were talking about the amount of plastic that's taken out of the ocean is in tons. And I think some company was boasting about how much plastic they are taking out of the ocean as saving the ocean. And it's just so minimal that maybe we just shouldn't be putting the plastic or dropping our garbage in this source of living for not just the animals in it, but for us too. Like, it's just, people just don't care. And it's hard. And let's see, Susan's saying climate change now seems to be equal to the cognitive dissonance around eating animals, sadly. That's true. I mean, what has to happen? But at the same time, when you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, it doesn't matter what I do, because, I always bring up, and I'm going to put it in the comments, I bring up the starfish story.
Yeah, the starfish story.
The starfish story is incredibly, incredibly important. And you can go read one of the...
Every activist knows this one by heart.
Right. And the most important part of the story is, well, I made a difference for that one.
Mattered to them. Yes.
Right. It mattered to them that you made the difference. Now, you can just apply that to anything. If you don't do, something won't get done. So you're doing, even though you're not like a million people, but you are one of a million people that's doing it. It's just not people that you know.
Right. Yeah, I think this has been touched on, but like the danger is nihilism. Like, what does it matter if I buy single-use plastic? What does it matter if I drive instead of taking the train? If what, you know, like a million different things. So yeah, we all need to be honest and also empowering at the same. It's not an easy thing to do, you know.
I'm glad John
And
brought
we
that
all
up.
what's that?
About the I'm glad John brought that up about the plastic, because I was just about to say that. We had like a little team of like vegans that were on Clubhouse, and we would go into these environmental rooms because usually they would like very specific in their title what they were talking about, and it would be like plastic and whatever. And you know, they had all these very passionate people who, you know, very much cared, and they would talk about, you know, and one in particular, I remember like they were talking about the plastic and, you know, the straws, everything we were talking about. And then we went up on stage and we said exactly that. Half the plastic in the oceans from fishnets. And whether they knew or not, I don't know, but they couldn't, they had no response.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the ultimate inconvenient truth, right? Because like,
I think that number is pretty much getting out there now. I mean, people, especially in Florida, I'm hearing that.
Wow.
So
but just like I remember years ago, you know, when Al Gore had An Inconvenient Truth movie that was so motivating to so many people. And it's like he spent way more time focusing on, you know, the right kind of light bulbs rather than dietary changes. You know, it was really, I think a lot of it comes down to like, who are the funders of these, you know, environmental groups? What are the diets of the people who are on the boards of directors? What, you know, like what, and I think that a lot of times it is this ultimate inconvenient truth, but we still need to share it. Like today I was reading, there's something like 5 or 6 main species of what are called reef sharks that are like 63% down in population because coral reefs have been so decimated by, you know, but it's two things. It's quote unquote overfishing, and it's so sharks also get caught for becoming shark fin soup and that sort of thing, but they also get caught as quote unquote bycatch. So, and you know, but like all these things, as Kelly was saying, are interconnected and interwoven and very intricate. You know, I mean, people may not care about sharks. The idiots out there, like you know, like I think
maybe they'll care about the sea turtles that also get caught
Yeah.
in those nets, right? Oh, dolphins. How about the dolphins? Dolphins you may want to care about get caught up in the fishing nets that are large enough that you can walk on when they're full. You can walk on them. And, you know, to go even further with that, you know, industries always need to do something with the extras. So one thing that happens in the fishing industry is what they catch and they kill that they can't use. They grind it up and they sell it to the cow industry. And they feed herbivores fish.
Yeah.
So cows are eating from that because, you know, you can't just throw out this extra cow, the dolphins and the sea turtles and the sharks and, you know, extras you catch that you can't use that you've killed. You need to do something with that. So a couple of things I want to note. We have shows about food. We got a lot of viewers. You know, we have shows about, you know, interesting topics. We have a lot of viewers. Every time we want to talk about climate, or I want to talk about climate on my own show, nobody's interested. It's not juicy enough. I don't know what it is. This is the most important thing that we have sort of spoken about. And we've talked about murdered children. We've talked about loss of rights. We've talked about pretty much everything on the show. This is the most important thing, because all those other things won't exist anymore if we don't do something about our planet. And then hospitals. I spent a lot of time in hospital the last couple of days. The waste in a hospital is out of control. The blood pressure cuff that was on Stephen's arm today was thrown in the garbage.
Wow.
I just don't. They use styrofoam. They use straws, plastic straws. Obviously, every bit of tubing is plastic, and we use this stuff, so this goes right into the garbage. And this is in every hospital, in every state, in every city, in every county, all over the world. Is the way. I mean, now we can't not have hospitals.
I think part of that goes back to a number of years ago when MRSA was a thing. And that was before COVID. And you had this big campaign to eliminate, what was the thing? 250,000 deaths that were happening every year as a result of cross-contamination. I remember when my sister was barely still alive, I had to go into a room and not take my cell phone, not put it down anywhere, had to wear a mask. And this was, again, well before COVID. We've just become such germ phobes that everything has to be so sanitized, as if that is going to make much of a difference.
I mean, there's sanitized, and then there's giving people plastic straws in styrofoam cups for the water, and then the styrofoam over the plastic container for the water to keep it cool. I mean, sitting there, my friend in the hospital is vegan, and we are literally talking to the nurses about this as they come in, because we just have a lot to say. But I just look around. I mean, today, this wasn't in hospital today. This was going to the hospital for testing. And she literally took the blood pressure cuff, and we talked about it. She threw it in the garbage and said, I don't know where all this goes. But
it's a great movie called Bagot. And the line that I remember from that movie, it's on Netflix, is when you think of the phrase throw away, remember there is no away.
That's a great phrase. And as Susan just said, same in nursing homes. So there's I get that we can't cross-contaminate people, especially when they're sick. I totally get that. But I think we've gone too far to the not reusable, to disposable everything in a situation that is, it just happens every single day.
So I've heard that 90% of species are gone now. Is that a number that anybody else has heard out there?
I don't know. I get so sad.
I mean, you talk about, Helene, what wakes people up. I mean, they're coming for your dogs and your cats. I don't know. Maybe that will.
Well, I know Silesh talks about, like, he has Vegan World 2026. And the reason why he came up with 2026 is he took the chart of the current decline in mammals, land mammals, and just charted it and just went, okay, at this current decline, let's say nothing changes. That's not even including climate change getting worse. Just at the current decline, we will have 0 land mammals by 2026. So, I mean, that's 3 years away.
That's us. Do people not realize that we're not just talking about like tigers and elephants? They realize we're mammals, right? I don't know. Do they not realize we're mammals?
No, most people don't.
Right? I mean, they also don't realize that, the only way to have milk is for the female cow to be impregnated, because people don't understand that human females have to be pregnant to produce milk, because we're mammals. And that's how we feed our children. And that's the same for cows or mammals. So education. No, 90%. No. Okay. So John is saying, no, 90% of species are not extinct. We will kill ourselves off long before we kill everything else. Hey, thanks. That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is a dark subject. We understand that it's a dark subject, but at the same time, it still can be turned around. However, if we're talking about this next year, a year from now, we do this show again, we're a year closer to 2026. I just don't even know what next year will look like, because the heat will only probably be hotter, and there'll be less water,
Mhm.
and there'll be more drought, and which means there'll be more disease. And it's
Well,
not,
imagine 10, 20, 30 years. That's where it's terrifying. Yeah.
that scares me to death for the people that will leave behind. I mean, we should still be alive in 20, 30 years. It's gonna fucking suck
Yeah.
to be old and have it and be like, have it be like that.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, come on. like come on, just do better. I mean, what do we have to do to help you understand that you need to do better, and that you need to, when we bring a topic like climate, anybody who brings it up, that you need to not go, oh, snooze, boring. It's not, if they're not going to talk about food this week, their favorite appliances. Yeah, we love talking about that stuff. However, really, the show was created to talk about this stuff. It's to talk about current events and stuff. You see, I'm having a hot flash. You see how red I am? I'm a major hot flash. Let me see. Susan's saying it's been 120 degrees in Greece and southern Spain this week. Yeah, Europe is like a major heat wave. And then John said the healthiest thing we can do for the planet is to kill off our own species. It will almost completely heal in 10,000 years or less.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's my husband.
Yeah, well, it's terrible to say, but that we need to do. The politicians are the ones that can facilitate change. They can actually create laws to make it so that we can put restrictions or stop things, but they won't do it because they're paid for by the people who need to pollute.
And there's no, and as important, there's no political will for them to have it. There's not enough of their constituents demanding, and that's as powerful as a corporate, whatever.
It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter if we demand. It just doesn't matter because you know what? Also, a large majority of the country wants legalized abortion, wants abortion to be legal. It doesn't matter. They don't look at numbers they don't look at polling numbers anymore. Because the polling numbers, if they went by them, they wouldn't be trying to eliminate the right to an abortion in this country. Because that's not what people want, including Republicans. It's not what they want. However, that's not what's going on.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of the complexity of the issue is that there aren't enough checks and balances against, like, the guy in Alabama who's holding, the military hostage because he disapproves of abortion. Tommy, whatever the hell his last name. There is too much opportunity for power mad individuals to hold us captive to their will. So, part of I'm sorry, my cat's going crazy. I somewhat disagree in the sense that obviously the NRA and gun enthusiasts have the power to scare politicians. We need to usurp, not necessarily. I mean, they definitely donate money to the politicians, but only at a certain threshold can they donate. They get tons and tons and tons and tons of calls, though, from their constituents. We need to be as aggressive about it.
We need someone with money to filter the money and to bribe them. They're not going to do it unless they're bribed with money. They have to know that they will keep their jobs and vote to and make laws to save our planet. And as far as they're concerned, if they say, hey, climate change is real, let's reduce your ability to have such and such, or hey, corporations, you're not going to be able to pollute the waters and the oceans and the sky and people's bodies because we're going to put restrictions on you, and then they're going to take their money away from them, and then they won't get reelected. I don't understand. I don't actually believe. I don't necessarily believe that if people did the right thing, they'd lose their job. I think you have to have more faith in the public that if you finally speak up and speak the truth. Well, that's not true because look at Cheney.
Yeah, they don't have.
She got primaried and lost her job, and not that she was a great person, but you know, I don't. There was, let me see, Deb said important thing. Thank you for discussing this topic. It helps me keeping on when I know there are people like you trying to change things. Well, thank you, Deb, for everything you're doing, because that's incredibly important for joining us. I don't know. Someone has to try it. Someone has to stand up. Someone has to have the balls to stand up and who's in a position of power to do something. And the scary part about all of this, which is funny because I've talked about it with Stephen, is only so much exposure I want for myself in doing. Does that make sense? Because I don't want them knocking on my door. I don't want the crazies coming to my house. And they will. The more you put yourself out, the more they attack you. And I just don't want to deal with that crap. So you have to put like a limit or a level on how much you are willing to put yourself out there. And that's scary to me because I wish that I felt comfortable enough, or we lived in a world where I could put myself fully out there and not have to worry about my house being burned down.
Yeah, there's scary people out there.
Yep.
I just got in Facebook, how you have your regular messages you get from your friends, and then someone can send you a message request. And I always know it's someone who's going to say something really terrible, but just got a threat from someone that I sure Facebook will do nothing about, even though I forwarded. But it was, it is a totally different topic, but he obviously saw that I have like pro LGBTQ banner on my thing and pro trans banner. And he said, I can't wait. You better hope I don't run into you in person or something like that. And we are pretty public. It's very easy to find us. We have a pantry now where we have to put our address on it for people to get free vegan food. I just, whatever happens.
That's true.
Yeah.
That we don't have a lot of control. However, we have the control on how we vote. We have the control on who we associate with. We have control over obviously what we say, what we do, how we present things.
When I used to be a TV reporter, I used to just feel like, nobody's ever going to hurt me, even though I had death threats all the time, because, I have this thing called a camera, and you come at me, I turn it on, and you're going to jail because I've recorded you. And it was just kind of, I look back now, it's sort of this cavalier, like, I'm wearing this bulletproof vest. And now, there is no protection whatsoever. On the other hand, I feel like at the end of my life, my kids are going to say, Mom, what were you doing at the revolution? And I want to make sure that they know that we were trying. We tried really hard.
Right.
And I just feel so sorry for what's ahead.
People want to make threats. If you're bold enough to make threats and you're bold enough to catch these hands, I'm not going to kumbaya with everybody. Right. You're not going to be making threats. And we are in the age of right now. I am a zillennial. I am nuck if you buck. I will mosh pit the hell out of you. I'm done. I'm just sick and tired. And as someone who is a parent to 2 Gen Alphas, it's time to show them, you want to come and think that, and this is, I will make it clear, this is not me advocating for violence. However, I'm advocating for saying enough is enough and sticking up for yourself. And you're not going to come to me, my community, and people of color, people that I support, marginalized groups, and you want to go ahead and be ableist or make threats. Well, then I'm going to show you exactly what five fingers on these hands can do. You can catch them. They are ready to eat for everyone. I don't care. If you want to do that, then you're going to have to go ahead and suffer and deal with the consequences that are going to be dealt to you if you think that you are immune from, thinking that you can spew hate and not, think that some type of retribution is going to to come across your face, you know, or any other place that my, you know, gigantic goth boot decides to take a smack at first. It's whatever, you know, it's I see fit. And it's about protecting yourself. It's about self-defense and not putting up with anybody's views, because the first thing that they're going to say are vegans are imposing their views upon us. No, the sun is if you can look at these videos where you can literally make a buffet breakfast on the concrete at this time of year, what is this showing you? I mean, sometimes it just doesn't register to people. It's getting out of hand. What's going on with climate change is getting out of hand. People that are overextending themselves to feel like they have the right to tell someone how they can live, what gender they're supposed to be, the ableism that's going around. And it's really scary. And yeah, like Helene, you said like 20, 30 years, things like that. Yeah, we're going to be around, but how will we be around? You know, it's sad because I do have a 9 and a 10-year-old. Every day is like, happy birthday, another year on this sucky ass planet that, you know, the people who are bigger than you or older than you or older than, you know, I am, we can't do anything. Like, they're in control, and it's scary because you just look at so many movies, sci-fi movies, and be like, this is the future for them and for us. So I don't know.
Well, I'm going to give a little positive.
We do is fight.
I'm going to infuse a little positivity because Stephen and I talked about this, and Stephen is very much like the everything's going to end. And I tend to be an optimist. It's hard sometimes, but, you know, we don't know who's being born or who's already alive. It's going to be the person that comes up with the thing that makes it okay. And I say that because we have cars, we have planes, we have filtered water, we have all these things that were invented and developed by other human beings. Electricity, light, wheels. I mean, everyone lived in a world where they were like, wow, that would be kind of amazing. So there is hope that there is someone who is yet to be born or is already alive, who is going to be that person or people that creates what it is we need to fix this or save us, if that's even possible. And I say if it's even possible because you can say, well, this, then that, and this in science and this and that, but there's so much we don't know that someone who's absolutely brilliant will learn or know. So that's what I say to Stephen when he brings up like the doom and gloom. Because something's always been invented. Go ahead, Marla.
I was just going to say, the other day we were downtown and in Chicago, and I saw a billboard, and I don't remember what it was advertising, but it was a picture of, I believe it was Nelson Mandela, if I'm remembering it correctly. And it was something like, never doubt. It's not the Margaret Atwood phrase, or not Margaret Atwood,
Mead.
What's that?
Margaret Mead.
Right. Never doubt, blah, blah, blah. It was like, but like, if you don't think you can make a difference, you know, look at what one person did, kind of thing, you know. But the fact is, it wasn't one person. There was a whole army of people doing activism under him to try to raise, and after he was jailed, you know. And I think that we need to move and shift from this model of looking for the hero who's going to save the day, and empower as many people as possible to create changes. Because the more we're in this paradigm of like the savior, that's just like the patriarchal silliness continue. We need to empower. That's all I can say.
That's really true. That's actually true. That the higher amount of people that focus on an energy moving forward, positive or negative, can make a difference. And we see that happening now with the negative. And, we have enough people. I'm not talking vegans. Now I'm just talking liberal, sane people who can actually think and have reasoning, cognitive reasoning. People who have this, because I feel like it is in everybody, but it's not. There's more of us than them. And when it comes to the planet and it comes to climate, even if you're not vegan, you should still care. And you should still be talking to the people that represent you in whatever government that you're in, because this is worldwide. This isn't just Canada and the United States. This is anywhere in the world. And you need to make sure that those people hear loud and clearly, you need to do something. And we need to collectively move that forward. That is something that we don't do very well. And I don't care how much infighting there'll be about it, but it just has to move forward. And there are enough of us to push that forward, but we need to do it. And I don't know how, I mean, as a person who organizes things for people, does that for a living, I don't know how to do that. It's I guess it's too big. And I guess you have to start having like pods or small pieces of people, like small groups in different places that are all kind of doing the same thing and working within their communities, kind of like animal rights activism does. It's all over the country, and there tends to be larger groups. But you have to. I haven't figured it out. And that's hard. That's scary because I tend to be able to figure things out. And the best thing I can say is you need to vote. You need to vote. And you need to vote for people that want to save the planet. Whether they agree with you on abortion, or they agree with you on these things. What's more important right now is not if somebody has a baby or not. What's more important is those damn children that you want born into this world are going to be born into a world that's going to be burnt up. Why would you want that?
Well, sometimes they have Christian beliefs about, that. Yeah. So,
but even if you do have a Christian belief, do unto others as you would do to yourself. No, would you not want for somebody else to have the same as you have as you're growing up? Would you not you don't want to harm your neighbor? These are all things that are obvious.
They're Old Testament fire and brimstone hateful people. So
it's still, no matter what, it's still not God's way to be, whether you believe it or not. It's still not his way or her way or their way, whatever you want it to be horrible to other people. Hands down, no matter what, I don't care what religion you are, you're not supposed to be horrible to other people. And that's completely different. completely right. It's a completely different topic. But if you cared enough about other people, no matter what your religion is, then you would care enough to try and save this planet, because you care about the people that eventually you're going to leave behind, and want them to have. You want the children to have a planet to live on.
If you care about the environment enough to take action, that means you don't trust God. If you, there's all kinds of ways of justifying, poor decisions.
But even whatever God that you believe in, if you believe in a God, because that's where this matters, it is still a level of God supplies you with choices, and you choose those choices, and each choice has a path, and that you've made that choice, and that path is what you're on. And something inside of you can say that God told you, or you can just have intuition it says to go down whatever path that is. And then if you believe that it's God, then that intuition is God talking to you and saying, you want to go down this way. Sometimes that path is just shit. But God said, whatever it is, you just, I used to I used to feel like there was a God, and now I've spent the last 4 years with Stephen, and not anymore. I just don't see enough to believe that, but I do believe that I have choices, and my choices determine my path and my future. And one of those is what I eat, and that helps the planet, and it helps the animals, and it helps my health. And that is something we all have control over, no matter what is going on. Anywhere in the sky or underneath the planet or wherever else it is in the energy in the planet. So
Yeah.
that's a nice little rant. Well, we're an hour and 10 into the topic that nobody's interested. So it's important. Anyone have anything else to say?
We have very
Okay.
little time left. We just need to act, and it's not a matter of just piggybacking off of what was said earlier. We don't have time to wait for a new one to be born. We know we're seeing what Gen Z and Gen Alpha is. There are 5-year-olds who are protesting and wiser than a lot of the adults that are walking this earth right now. They come out the womb just literally ready to chastise, as if they're old spirits with their facial expressions and sass, and they know what's up now before they're exposed to a lot of really cool young shows too that are not afraid to be bold enough to start them at a very young age, to teach about differences, the importances of love and respecting each other and the planet, and pronouns and, things like that. Shout out to Bluey. It's such a fantastic show. And we have very little time left, but it all is not lost, but we have to act regardless of who's going to hate us or not, because we want to be here. They probably don't. You can go ahead and be over there while we fight for what we've got and what's left and try to preserve it for children who do want to still be here, and preserve it for them and the plant and the animals and just the Mother Earth in general. So
Yeah, 50 to like 100 years is not a lot of time.
no,
And that's all on average that we get. So live your life, do the best thing with it. Go to bed at night where you can lay your head down. And I don't know how some people do that. And know that you did right by that day. I don't think there's a lot of people sleeping. Because I don't, not by the choices that we see. But make the most of your time here. And don't spend it working all the time. Spend it loving and caring and living, because you only get one life, and if you waste it, you don't get another shot. So on your deathbed, I want you to say, I loved what I did, as opposed to I wish I had. And I wish I had saved the planet. I wish I'd eaten all those animals. I'm okay with that. Just do something about it now. Do something about it. So
keep on keeping on.
Yep. And keep on doing, and keep watching the Vegan Stew. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to say thank you, Sovereign. And thank you, Marla. And thank you, Ellen. And thank you, Kelly. And again, thank you for watching the Vegan Stew and being part of the show. Lots of great comments. And we will not have a show next week, which means we won't be back until the second week of August, which will be August 9th, with some topic. We'll make it lighter and maybe food related so that people are more interested in that. But like I said, very important. Climate. Share this with people, talk about it, do something about it, vote. We have to do something. It's that point. We have to do something. So on that note, have a good few weeks and stay safe, stay healthy, be kind. Go to virtualvegfestlive.com, enter the contest, and thanks to Organic Motherland Foods for sponsoring this month. Bye, everybody.